All right, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Welcome to the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel. I'm very happy to have with me a very talented and versatile guitar player, originally from Toronto, Canada, whose band Cousin Harley is probably the top rockabilly band right now, and touring all over the place. You've been gigging since you were 12 years old, high demand as a sideman. You've played with everybody from the Wallflowers to Albert Lee, Jeff Beck, James Burton, Brian Setzer, Nico Case, and others. Welcome, Paul Pigat.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you, especially about this record, but I definitely want to hear what you've been up to lately before we dive into the record. And I didn't know you were a luthier either, so...
So I just got back from tour, and then we did our official album release for this record. And then between that and teaching, I build guitars as well. So I had a few orders I had to fill. I've got a few little passion projects, old guitars that really should not be repaired, but I refuse to let them
die.
So I will take on ridiculous things that really no luthier should ever do.
What kind of guitars do you build? Are they hollow bodies or?
No, well, it depends. I'm actually, I had a whole run of my own line of guitars that, I would just, everything is done by hand. I don't, when I first did this line, I didn't even use templates. I just sketched everything and I built them. And then I had a block of wood that I got off my property on the Sunshine Coast. And it wasn't big enough for one of my guitars. So I made a Telecaster for myself because I love, I primarily play Telecasters now. And once I made that Telecaster, I got so many orders for Telecasters. So I've been making mostly Telecasters right now. I have one of the ones that's my design is sort of a homage to Paul Bigsby. So I'm doing sort of a double cut Bigsby design, and I'm also currently building a 1930 style OM18.
Wow, that sounds really cool. So anybody can. Are these just privately you build them, or can people order them online from you, or is it?
Yeah, you just get a hold of me on one of the socials. What I usually do is I'm going to build them regardless, because this is not only it's like music. It's my hobby, it's my business, just the same thing with building. So I'm going to build them regardless because I have a really good time doing it. So what I usually do is I'll announce when I'm going to do a new batch on Instagram or something, and then people will let me know if they're interested or whatnot. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So I came across this. I'm a big jazz fan, but I'm also a huge blues and rock fan as well. But when Corey released this I was kind of surprised when I saw this. When he sent it to me, I was like, what is this? This looks pretty cool. I put it on, and I was like, wow, this is like jump blues, kind of a West Coast swinging blues type thing. And I really dig this. This is just a fantastic record. So tell us how you got with Corey to put this out.
Well, Corey and I have been talking about, we've played in bands together over the years, and Corey and I have been talking about doing a record for Cellar Live for a while. Like all my Cousin Harley records are out on my own label, pretty much. But he wanted to do a record, and I said, man, the last thing anybody wants to do is hear a jazz record by me, because I'm a blues hillbilly guitar player. Although I dabble in jazz, but I said, listen, I used to have a band called the Smokin' Jackets in Victoria when I first moved out west. And I said, we did all this jump swing stuff. And so he said, yeah, let's do a Smokin' Jackets record. And all those players I still work with on the island. But I said, well, I really like playing with Cousin Harley. So why don't we just do Cousin Harley does the music that I grew up playing. And then it just sort of, it happened really fast, The next thing I know, we were in the studio doing the record.
So you have your regular band with you on this, right? And then you've got a few other people, like Corey actually plays on this.
Corey plays tenor. Jerry Cook plays Barry and tenor. Derry Byrne plays trumpet, and Chris Jestrin on keys.
And then what about the recording? You says it when you recorded at Warehouse Studios in Vancouver. So
yeah.
What did you just do? It says that you recorded on February 7th. So you guys just went in there one day and went through the tunes a couple times and picked your best takes type thing?
Yeah. We actually we played a gig 2 days beforehand because we're not, we're not a 7-piece band. Normally it's a trio. So we did a seven-piece band gig 2 days before. Jerry was writing the horn arrangements. He was still writing the second set horn arrangements in between the first and second sets. And then, we just went into the studio 2 days later and did it.
It came out great. It sounds fantastic. How did you pick the songs that are around here? Because you have definitely you got BB King on here. You got a Liebert Stoller tune. How did you pick all these songs?
They're just tunes I've either done for years or ones that I've always wanted to do. Like I've been doing the BB King stuff and the T-Bone and the Johnny Guitar Watts and stuff. I've been doing that stuff for years, but that's none of it's ever made a record because I haven't really done a jump blues record up until now. Although there is always some blues touch to every Cousin Harley record, but I thought which of these tunes that I had in my repertoire that I've done for years would really work well with a larger ensemble, and that's sort of what I chose, why I chose them.
Yeah, it's a good selection of tunes for sure. And your playing style, I went back and was listening to some of your back catalog, and you're a pretty versatile player. I mean, you play from that country swing stuff. I mean, you got some jazz type things in here, Django kind of stuff going on, maybe. And how did you put all this together? Or did you just by listening to different things over the years, were you able to just incorporate these different styles to kind of make your own thing?
I'm a magpie. I like shiny things. so I don't know. It's funny. Because I have a degree in classical guitar, and my mentor at that, he knew what I was going to do way before I did. Like I was still a long-haired rock and roller going to university for classical music, and I found somewhere in my stack of sheet music back here, I found it might have been an Astor Piazzolla tune or something like that, and written on the back in his handwriting says Django Reinhardt and Chet Atkins. And that way before I was interested in either of those guys. So, it just seemed like a logical thing. Like I got into playing hillbilly music, in the early '90s, and I've always been interested in playing jazz because there was lots of great jazz guitar players that were friends of mine in Ontario. And then it all sort of stems out from the same thing. Like hillbilly music has jazz in it. It has Western swing in it. It's the beginning of rock and roll. It's and of course I grew up playing the blues as well, and I kind of think of it all as the same thing. It's just what hat you decide to wear at any given moment, and then eventually you just throw it all in the blender and spin it around, and whatever pops out is what pops out.
You've managed to play with a lot of different people, even different types of things, like with the Wallflowers, for example, right?
Well, I just played with Jacob.
Okay.
Jacob did his two solo records, and yeah, that was awesome. Although we did some Wallflowers tunes, and I tell you, playing the first four notes of One Headlight at a festival,
everybody knows it.
It's a pretty exciting four notes,
How did that come about? How did you run into him?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned Nico Case, so I played on Nico's first record, and Nico was playing drums around town in Vancouver at the time, and she sang on my very first Cousin Harley EP, and that's actually somewhere out there. There's copies of those, but that's the very first time Nico ever sang on a record. And long story short, I didn't go touring. I toured a little bit with Nico on and off, but I didn't do too much of it. But a good friend of mine, Paul Rigby, still plays with Nico. They were working together, and Jacob and Nico were starting to do a sort of a collaboration. And Nico needed to go do something with T-Bone Burnett, so Paul usually accompanies her wherever because he's sort of her musical director. And then there was a void for a guitar player in the Jacob Dylan project, so I ended up jumping in for a little while.
That's cool. So that's got to be a lot different than, I guess, playing with a smaller band. I mean, I know myself, when you go around and, if you're playing a small band, you got to drive and carry your stuff and,
Yeah.
load your amp in and all that. So how was it to have someone come up there and take your guitar or whatever and do all that? I
was
imagine that'd be pretty cool.
I was completely spoiled. I was completely spoiled. And it's the only time in all the gigs I've ever done that I've ever had anybody like that, like where I've had my guitar tech and I thought I could so get used to this. This is amazing. And I'm one of the few people that I haven't had too many opportunities to do the tour bus, like the proper tour bus, but I love the tour bus, right? I love those little compartments that you just sleep in, and they used to call me the possum because I could sleep anywhere. We'd start in Toronto and end up in Glace Bay, Cape Breton Island, and I would sleep for 12 hours until we got to Fredericton. Being in a moving vehicle and being driven around, and then you get up and you can have a coffee and you walk into the venue and your gear is set up and they've measured it, like they've measured how far you like to have your microphone from your amplifier, and I could so get used to that.
I bet.
Unfortunately, it's never happened since.
To me, that's always the worst thing. We do a little acoustic thing here sometimes, and it's like 5 minutes from my house, and I hate loading up all the stuff and driving over and unpacking it and carrying everything in and all that. So that's always like the least amount of fun, right? It's always fun to play, but it's never fun to schlep all your stuff.
No, as I get older, my gear gets lighter.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your gear. What are you playing for? What are you taking around with you for amp now?
Well, I've got a few. The amp on the record is a locally made amp. It's a 5E3 clone, so it's basically a Tweed Deluxe, like a late -- Tweed Deluxe. It depends on the gig. That amp is actually a little underpowered for most. For a Cousin Harley gig, it would be underpowered. So I have a 71 Deluxe reverb that I use a lot, and I have a 1960 Tremolux that I use a lot. And then
Go ahead.
And I have a Gretsch Executive, but because when I got the Gretsch endorsement, the thing that I wanted the most was their amplifiers that they had made in the early 2000s. So I have one of those, and it's sitting right here in front of me, and it's an amazing amplifier. It's just I'm too old to carry it.
Yeah, it's a combo.
It's a big single 15 combo. It's about the size of a Tweed Bassman. It's 18 watts, I think, but it's the healthiest 18 watts I've ever heard. And this amp it sounds good across the spectrum, but when you just drag your finger across all the knobs and just turn everything to 10, that's when this amp, unlike any other amp I've ever played, that's when it's the tightest and just the nastiest, and it's wonderful.
Interesting. And what's the model number of that?
It's an Executive, so it's
Executive.
Okay. Yeah, they made them. Here it is. It's a 6163. They made them in the early, I guess, around 2008, 2009, and they were made by Victoria Amps. So it was designed specifically for Gretsch's. It has its own weird little input stage. It's basically like a deluxe in its own way, but it's a little brighter, so it's voiced for Gretsch's.
That sounds pretty cool. You probably don't use a ton of effects, right? I imagine it depends on what you're playing, but you just pretty much go straight in the amp. Are you adding some distortion or anything?
It depends.
Reverb?
Yeah. With the Tweeds, I usually have a reverb, some form of reverb pedal. I've got spring reverbs and all. I've got a collection of reverbs that I think you can buy reverbs infinitely because every one of them is different. And then depending on the gig, sometimes I use a drive. With the Tweed Deluxe, I generally don't need one. It kind of does that all by itself. But I've been using a lot of there's a fella out here out west who's got a company called McGregor Pedals, and I've been using his crunch pedal for if I'm doing something with a Telecaster that's a little bit more modern sounding, and then if I want that sort of jump sound, and I can't get it, the Tweed Deluxe isn't loud enough for the gig, then I'll bring something called a Junior Barnyard, which is made by a company out of California called Nocturne Pedals. and it basically makes your amp sound like an octal tube amp, so it makes it sound like an EH-185.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's a cool little.
So,
It's around here somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's around here. Oh, it's probably in the pedal board. That's why.
oh, okay, yeah. So pretty much your setup's pretty simple. Right now you're playing mainly Telecaster, you were saying?
Yeah, with not for the jump stuff, but not for this latest record. That's the Gibson 350. But primarily, I've been touring with a Telecaster lately because I have been doing lots of flying, and it's way easier to fly with a Telecaster than it is with anything else. And I make them. So I play my own guitars, and it's good promotion.
Yeah. Are there any particular pickups you like on that Tele?
Yeah, everything on the Telly that I make are made in Vancouver. So there's same person that made my 5E3 lo-fi, it's Electronics, I believe it is, Electronics Industries. He makes all my pickups as well. So the one and he'll make whatever style pickup. If I want to have a flat pole broadcaster, no problem. He wires it exactly right. It reads exactly the way it's supposed to read. I think I'm using like a 55 stagger pole in mine right now, and it's got a little bit more clarity on the top end, and I love them. I think they're great pickups. I love most pickups though. I collect weird old pickups. My first series of guitars were made quite a while ago, and I found a guy. This was before the Russian-Ukrainian war. I found a guy in Kiev who had a whole bunch of new old stock Chernigov pickups, and I go, man, I've heard every pickup in the world, but I have never heard a Soviet pickup before. So I bought them all, and they sound amazing. Like if you're looking for something that's your typical Stratocaster or P90 or humbucker, they don't sound anything like that. They have their own thing, and they're cool. I think every pickup's got its own vibe to it. You just got to find it.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So as far as on this album, you said you played the Gibson on this one, or
yeah,
on this.
That's a 49 ES350 on that record.
Oh wow!
Which I've had that. Yeah, I've had that guitar for. Jesus, it would be pretty close to 30 years now. I've had that guitar.
And then the amp on this, did you use different amps for different tunes, or is it pretty much the same thing? Just
one amp, 5E3,
5E3.
Yeah, I think the only effect, because it didn't have reverb, right? So I used surprisingly the best Boss pedal I think ever made was the '63 Fender Tank pedal, which was their little version of the spring reverb tank, right? And they discontinued them, and they're the best pedal that company has ever made because it's really close. Like it's really, really close. I have an Orion Spaceman, which is an actual spring reverb, and 9 times out of 10, if I have that pedal in my board, even if I'm playing through an amp with reverb, I will use the pedal instead of the reverb because it is so good. It'll splash. And you can really alter the tone of it because I don't like murky reverbs. I like really bright, splashy reverbs because it very much, the Rick Holmstrom, Junior Watson kind of sound. That California sound. And that pedal does it. I'm always blown away that this little pedal will do that.
Yeah, that's the tank reverb you said.
That's tank reverb.
Yeah. Yeah, always the best ones they discontinue for some reason. All the ones.
I know.
Then they go for hundreds of dollars. You can't find them.
I know, and I saw one come up for sale last year, and I thought I should buy that, and I didn't, and I wouldn't even but then why do I need 2 of them? Because I have a problem, and I must consume guitar equipment at all times.
Yeah, you never have enough. I mean, there's always something.
It really is.
And then I see you're doing this acoustic thing. It's a different project you do, right? Where you're playing acoustic guitar.
Oh, Boxcar Campfire.
Boxcar Campfire. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. I was listening to the Ring of Fire and some of the other music. Nice. Yeah. So how did that come about?
I started to this. It's funny. Like there's 2 records from Boxcar, and the plan is that it'll be a trio of records, and that will be the end of that project. I did the first one about 15 years ago, and I did the second one about 5 years ago. So I figure I got another 5 years till I have to do the third one, and then I'm done. I just started writing. Well, I was playing around Vancouver, doing a lot of acoustic blues stuff, like playing a lot of Mance Lipscomb and stuff like that, and then I was introducing more folky type things into it, and I just sort of thought, well, maybe it's time to do that record, because you can't play fast hillbilly music all the time. You got to do something different every once in a while, and and I'm a fingerstyle guitar player, so I love all forms of fingerstyle. So I thought, well, this is sort of folky fingerstyle, and then the next one I think I'm going to do, it will be probably more of a ragtime type thing with a little more.
Oh, really?
A little more Reverend Gary Davis on it and stuff like that.
That's really cool. I'm a big country blues fan. Obviously Robert Johnson, you can't, hard to do him justice when you listen to those records and how he plays on there. It's kind of incredible.
Oh, yeah.
So that you have a lot of this kind of mixture of these old Skip James maybe, and these different guys. And what acoustic guitars do you use, or do you favor? Do you have?
I've got a bunch. My main acoustics are made by a fella in Vancouver named Warren Murfitt, I share space with him at we build together, and he's sort of my mentor for building. I have a Guild M20 from maybe the early '60s, and then for playing acoustic jazz, I finally decided to bite the bullet, and I bought myself an L5.
Wow, that's like I mean, what year is that?
31.
Wow.
31, and then for playing resonator stuff, I restored this one. This one was destroyed when I got it, but I restored it.
Oh wow! How did that had to be? How did you restore that? I mean,
it was in the neck had been seriously pitted, so I had to do a lot of work on the fretboard. Of course, the cone was crushed; it was gone. The tension bar in the center of it was broken, so I had to fix that, and then I had to reset the neck on it. And then someone suggested, should you refinish it? And I said, of course I'm not going to refinish it. It looks like a pack of dogs has been on it. I totally want it to live like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I'm really big into although I have lots of really fantastic guitars from many of the big companies. Like that one back there is that's handmade in Vancouver as well. I'm really big in supporting local luthiers and just luthiers in general.
Yeah, so try to get that the old timey tone there. When you listen to those. Of course, those old records. You go back to the '30s, and they're not very well recorded. But yeah, that's really cool. That you're pretty much you are the embodiment of guitar here. I mean, you make them, you live them.
I'm a dork. Yeah.
I recently bought I've got it sitting back here, a Royal Resonator.
It's
kind of funny that you said that yours is looks like that, and they make them now to look like that.
That's right.
No. You got to buy them beat up looking.
What's funny, I've been searching for an old National for a long time, and I've come across a bunch of the wood body ones, like the Trojans and stuff like that, and those are really cool. But I really wanted a 12 fret. Like duolian or triolean. I'm not a big. I don't need to have the 14 fret to the body joint. I like the 12 fret to the body joint. I like where the bridge sits on that. So this one popped up, and it was in Ottawa, and a friend of mine picked it up and then shipped it out to me. And when I got it, I was going, ooh, this is rougher than I thought. But as I say, I don't like to let broken guitars go to the dump. I would rather try and fix them. So this was another labor of love.
Did you put a pickup in that?
Yeah, I did. I just bought this crazy pickup from Offshore Pickup, and I just thought, well, I looked at the dimensions. I go, oh, it's nice and thin, and it'll fit. And then I thought, well, how am I going to mount this thing? And then I thought, well, hold on, this thing's made of metal, and this is magnetic, so it's just stuck on there magnetically. And it sounds great. It's a little. It makes this thing sound a little bit like a Les Paul, though. It's a little more aggressive than I was hoping for. But that's why you use it. You know, you can always tone that down with the amplifier.
Right. You just play that through acoustic amplifier or something that, as far as those go, what do you usually use on that? On the
I have an AER.
AER?
Yeah, AER. But 9 times out of 10, I'll play it through the Tweed Deluxe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it makes everything sound like a Lightning Hopkins record, right? Because you play an acoustic guitar through a Tweed Deluxe, and it just sounds like an old recording. Which
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So that's cool.
yeah.
So is there going to be a part 2? Because this says this is volume 1. Did you guys record enough to do 2 records, or is it?
That was part of the joke. Was that I wanted. Corey was saying, "How long is the name of this record?" Like Paul Pigat presents Cousin Harley playing the blues, and I said volume 1. But we'll see how it goes. If it sells well, and if people really like it, then I will definitely do another one.
Yeah, I think you should. I keep telling people, look, there's all these record collectors. I'm like, look, there's only 200 of these, and this is freaking awesome. What else do you want? This is a great sounding record. How about the cover? How'd you guys decide on that?
Oh, I'll show you that. I don't know where it is. All right, so I'll tell you the story. Here's the story. So, I have a great friend in California named Tommy Harkenreiter, fantastic jump blues guitar player, and he gave me an old. It's somewhere around here. I wish I knew where it was when I picked it up. He gave me an old music folio, Charlie Parker music folio from the early '50s. And the cover is a saxophone in a circle with a bunch of lines coming off it, with the names of the songs in the folio, and it's blue and orange. And I basically took a photograph of this folio and I said, I want it to look like this. And it got sent out and they sent something back that looked nothing like it. So I said, no, it's got to look like this. I took a picture of it again, and they sent it out, and then they got closer. And then we discussed, I said, well, the guitar that you have in the circle is an acoustic guitar. I said, this is a jump blues guitar record. I said, what does it matter? I said, guitar players know this. Yeah. Guitar players are the dorkiest people on the planet. They will say, well, I tell you, that's not a 54, blah, 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 because it's missing this is. So it took a while. But yes, it is a ripoff of a very obscure music folio from the 50s of Charlie Parker.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I like it. It really caught my eye when Corey sent them over, and I really enjoyed this record. I know you were running short on time here. I definitely got to have you back on. I could talk to you for hours about guitars. So whenever you have more time.
I love talking about guitars. So anytime you want to talk about guitars, we can talk about guitars.
Yeah, and I'd love to see maybe you can come back on and show us some of the ones you made. I'd love to see those. And
hold on. I got one right here. I think I just happen to have one right here.
Oh wow, that's like a Bigsby tremolo.
Yeah, it's got a Bigsby
or the whammy bar. Yeah.
And these are, I forget what these are. I don't know what these are, but this is made out of sapelli on the back, with a spruce top, ebony board, mahogany sapelli neck, and there's my.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There's my little Sputnik because they.
I like that. Yeah.
Because they were all called.
Is that etched in there? Or is it? Oh, that's on there. It's like a.
No, it's sort of sitting on top. Actually, The next line I'll do I will probably have it inserted into there. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. This one's one of my favorites.
That's really cool looking. Yeah, not really kind of a late '50s, early '60s kind of a vibe to it.
Yeah, and my big inspiration for guitar building is European guitars. I love guitars from the 50s and 60s that come from Europe. I own a Wandre, which is a very rare Italian guitar. Echoes from Italy, Hoffs, and I just think there was so much interesting design in guitar coming out of Europe. Now, granted, most of those guitars don't play very well, but they look fantastic. So I took the aesthetic from those companies, and then I would modify them and do my own thing to them.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, talking about your record, and we definitely got to get back together and talk more guitars because I got a lot more stuff I'd love to talk to you about.
Anytime.
So-
Well, hey, how about this? You just let me know when you want to do it, and we'll find a time to do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you hopefully soon.
Have a great one.
See ya.
See ya.